and it develops things even better, progressively better. It plants. That's what you believe. You believe. Hang on. You believe this universe does all these things and does things. You call this universe Mother God, nature, because nature doesn't demand from you to worship the Creator. That's why you take the two options. Who am I? Listen. Who am I going to take? God, who says, be kind, be just, don't deceive, don't lie, don't be selfish, don't, utilize usury, and don't gamble, don't rape, don't watch pornography. And Mother Nature doesn't say any of that. You'd go for Mother Nature, because Mother Nature is with you and your interest and your feelings and your desires. But yes, I make that claim.
I want to go to paradise.
Listen.
I want to live forever.
So let me.
Nature tells me I'm going to die. Boom, dead.
Listen. This universe.
I want to believe I'm going to live forever.
Listen.
Do not tell me I'm dead.
Okay. Let me ask you the same question.
I'm dead, God.
What would convince you? What would convince you that there is a creator of this universe?
Well, if, and this has not happened, if there were thousands of prophets over the world in the past, and they all speak the same message, that would convince me.
What would convince you now?
Nothing, because it's too late. It's too late.
Okay. So basically now we've found an individual like yourself,
It's too late.
a thinking individual. He says, the thing that will convince me that there's a creator, there is nothing to convince.
Yeah, it's too late now.
Remember what I said? There are people who are not, and they're reluctant to engage with any evidence. If there are compelling evidence that there is a creator, would you believe?
Okay, yeah, sure. Yes.
You just contradicted yourself.
No, I did not.
You said there is nothing that can convince
I can't
me.
think of anything.
Listen. You said there is nothing that can convince you, and compelling evidence can convince you. Which one is the truth? Because they are contradictory. Which one?
I don't know what it is.
They are contradictory statements. Can you make a statement which is not contradictory? Nothing can convince me. Compelling evidence can convince me. Which one?
You haven't given me any compelling evidence.
No. You made two statements. Brother, you made two contradictory statements in one breath, almost. Nothing can convince me. Compelling evidence can convince me. Which one?
I'll go for the compelling evidence.
Right. So that means. Wait.
I've got all the evidence I've found.
Please listen.
And nothing's convinced me.
Please listen.
I've never found any compelling evidence.
My friend. So you have to say, it's not nothing that will convince me. Something can convince me.
Okay, let's try.
Good.
So stop with the evidence.
Wait.
That's why I say nothing.
Slowly.
It's too
So
late.
tell me what that something
I
that
don't
will.
know what it is.
So how can we give it to you? If you have no idea what this something.
Would have convinced me.
No. Today, now.
In the past.
No,
it's too
today,
late.
now.
It's too late.
So
You
you're
know
now.
too much now. You see too much now.
So now you're saying again, today there can be compelling evidence, but I don't know what that is.
Because it's all.
You need to help yourself so that we can help you. You cannot. You see, you cannot.
We know too much about science.
Listen.
About diseases, about religions, about people, about what fools people. We know too much.
So,
He's searching for something. He says he's going to die. You want to go to
brother,
paradise?
please. Without any commentaries. You believe there is something that can convince you.
I've seen it.
There is something, right?
Maybe there is something in it.
Not maybe, there is, because you said it cannot be nothing. You have to take one or the other. So there is something that can convince you, if it's compelling.
I've never found anything that will convince me.
No, it's not what you found.
And I've looked.
No.
Yes, I have. I've looked.
My friend, you're not listening
Too late.
attentively. In principle, there can be something that can convince you if it's compelling.
In theory, yes. But
Good,
no,
in
it
theory.
is.
Good. So what I would now request you is this. I have known you for many years in this park. Yeah, many years. I would like you to kindly go and sit down in your own time. Listen.
I've done that.
Listen.
I've read the Bible, I've read the
Listen.
Quran twice.
You don't know what I'm demanding or requesting.
I've
rather.
thought about God.
Listen to him.
You see?
I didn't think about God since I was
No,
7 years old.
you're not listening to what I'm going to say.
I've been
I am,
studying against God since
I am-
I was 7.
listen, I am simply saying, because in principle you accept, there can be something that can convince you if it's compelling to accept as a creator. I would like you to spend some time to find out what that thing can be, so that when you ask of us, we can give it to you. Yep. So now let's move on. Thank you. So this is your homework. This is your homework. So as I was saying,
I've done that. I've been doing it
no,
since I was 7
you
years
haven't.
old.
You haven't done it. You have to do it now.
I've been thinking about it since I was 7 years old, but I haven't found it yet. So it starts there.
Okay. What were the things that
You can't think of anything.
Okay.
You
What?
can't
Wait. Because from year 7, or when you were 7 years old to your age today, you have looked for things that might be compelling.
Yes.
Give me a few examples that you thought could have been compelling, but it wasn't.
Okay, right. Okay, if you want. If we're all over the world, there have been prophets
That's
all
past.
over the world.
Today. Not the
Exactly, that's
past.
the
Today.
problem.
No. Give me the things that you searched
I don't
that
believe.
from today,
Didn't work
when you were
then.
7-year-old, or 8, or 25, or 40, that the moment that you're reflecting, if this thing was presented to you, you would be compelled to accept. Don't talk about the past which you cannot change. So what were the examples that you thought about?
I can't think of anything today.
So
Because
basically,
everything today is going to be full, full people, the flaws of the human brain.
so you haven't really thought about anything like
Yes,
that?
we have.
No.
We have thought about
So
it.
listen, my friend, I am simply asking you for a very simple thing.
And I can't
Homework.
give it to you.
Listen,
I've done that.
No,
I told you I've been doing it since I was 7 years old.
Listen, you're not
That's
listening.
no point me doing it further. I've been doing it all my life.
What I want,
All my life
okay,
I've
let's
been
see.
doing it.
Let's see if my sister in humanity understands what I'm saying. I am saying, do not demand on you. Things will be compelling that in the past, if it was like that, then I would believe. You can't change the past, so you cannot.
Exactly, that's why I don't.
Let me
If it
finish.
failed in the past,
Let me
it
finish.
failed now.
You should not put forth a criteria that you cannot use because you cannot change the past. If you
I
had
know
the,
that. I know all that.
can you let me finish?
But today we have communication.
Can you let me finish, right? Can you let me finish?
Nothing works anymore.
Perhaps you'd understand where I'm coming from.
I know where you're coming from.
You cannot put forth a criteria of acceptability. Yeah? If it's a good
You can't give
criteria.
me a single thing to believe in.
You know,
You can't do
subhanallah,
it.
meaning,
All you're
praise
doing
be
is
to
bouncing
Allah,
on-
glorified be He.
It's simple. You
Listen,
can't
listen,
think
listen.
of anything that will convince me. You
My
cannot
friend,
think of anything.
try to understand.
I can't think of anything.
If-
You can't think of anything.
If, for example, I want to know that this camera is made by Canon or not,
Yeah.
I cannot put forward a criteria and say, you know what, if all the cameras in the world were made by Canon, I would believe it's by Canon. But I know all the cameras in the world were not made by Canon. I cannot make a criteria which is totally invalid.
Yes, that's fair.
I have to set forth a criteria which I can test. Having fun. If I'm going to use a method, this method must be testable, verifiable. The method that you are putting forth for your acceptability of a creator is something that you cannot test or assess or verify. You're saying the only method that would have convinced me is the method of history, but you cannot go back in history. So it is a method that you have put forth willingly, knowing that no one can use this method.
Give me something.
Yeah? So you have now what we call self-deceit. Brother, please. You have put forward a self-deceiving argument that knowing that you cannot traverse the historical past. So demanding if the past was like that, then I would believe is a self-deceit. It's a deceiving argument to your own self.
It's a flaw. I know too much about the world today to know how it can be fooled. So if it says, say, a voice appears in the sky, what appears in the sky and spoke to me,
Yeah. Would you believe?
how would I know that wasn't delusion?
Did you not say
How
that?
would I know that was delusion?
Did you not say that earlier on?
How do I know that wasn't...
You see, he's clever enough to say that he was not going to demand that because he knows that now, if I said, what about God comes to you and speaks to you, I'm God, he will say, magic, I'm deluded, it's a delusion. So
Do we know?
what would convince you
I
is
don't
something
know.
that
You can't tell me.
that
You can't think of anything.
you-
I can't think of anything. You can't think of anything.
so
Trying
because
against her, that God exists.
He's not trying to convince me.
Of course he is. It's the whole
No.
point.
I'm learning from him.
That's the
He's
same
learning
thing.
from him because he cannot convince you. Just,
My point is,
It's
the
over,
argument
isn't
to
it?
God fails.
he cannot convince you.
Information and you research it. That's the difference. Not just
Yes.
listen to it and reject it. You have to process.
I haven't given you arguments for God yet. I'm simply saying, when we examine this, thank you, when we examine this universe,
I
there
know
are
the
a lot of
argu-
things
I know the
that we
arguments.
can.
They're not the bad arguments. I know the argument. I've heard
extrapolate from it, make inference of by studying this universe. Like the gravity that we examined, that we don't see gravity,
There's something good you
we don't hear it, we don't feel it, we don't touch it, we don't sense it. The only thing that we see the effects of it. So from the effects, we accept the existence of a gravitational force or something. Gravity. This universe also demonstrates from the workings of this universe that it's an effect of a cause that has put this universe into place. So this is not an argument for God, it's simply saying, look at this universe and you make inferences. If you say this universe has self-created itself, that's one argument. That means at one point the universe was non-existent and then it created itself. Again, this is an argument which is totally invalid. Why? If you're non-existent to begin with, you cannot create yourself because you don't have the energy. You're non-existent. To make something, you need energy. So the universe could not have self-created. So the universe has to be either brought into existence by something external to it. Now this external agent for this universe is one of many causes or the one and only cause.
It doesn't matter what the other ideas are, but when you
Possibilities exist.
can have an idea,
Let's say it is one of many causes. This universe was caused by an external agent called A. A caused this universe to come into existence.
likely answer is we're living in a simulation. Who created
Did it answer our question? It's just simply shifted our question to another level. What caused A?
but there had to be one point.
That caused the universe. So we can ask, okay, the answer may be B caused A. That caused the universe. What caused B? Now you can go on and on ad infinitum, where there is infinite number of causes for this universe.
Infinite regress then. You cannot keep saying
Or
what came before that, what came before that, what came
actually, when we look at the causes of the universe, maybe there is a cause at one point. You see, we are simultaneously talking about the same argument. At one point, maybe there is a cause beyond which there wasn't an external cause beyond that. Okay? Now we can use our rationality and find out which makes sense. If there are chains of creators or causes for our universe,
could not just have come into
can we rationally explain the existence of our universe?
of it.
Can I give you an example to illustrate in a different way? Okay, this is a phone. It's an object that needs to physically go from my hand to his hand. Okay, so that's like the action. Okay, okay. Now this phone, to go from my hand to my brother's hand there, it has to pass infinite number of hands in between. Infinite number of hands. You have to go through every single other infinite hand to go to his hands. My question is this: would my phone ever reach his hand if there are infinite number of people in between? Infinite, never ending.
Then what created that? Nothing.
Never, because there's always someone in front of him. It will never reach his hand. Okay, so we understand one thing, that if there are infinite number of causes for something, that action, the final action, is not going to take place. This universe, if it was the final action of all these creators in the past, the universe will not come into existence, because there will be someone else creating another god. Creating another god, the universe will not be created.
So a spark.
Because the universe is here, it seals the argument. There wasn't infinite number of creators or causations for our universe. Our causes for our universe has to be finite. At one point there is a cause or a creator beyond which there is no other cause. That's what we call is the first cause. Aristotle called it primordial. The primary cause, which is uncaused. Has to be. Because if you are the only one there and you have no cause before that, then you must be uncaused. So we say when our universe is here, there has to be a cause of our universe which is uncaused, which is absolute. If something is absolute, which has no beginning, it is eternal with no beginning. If it's eternal with no beginning, nothing brought it into existence, this cause. Nothing can remove it from existence. Nothing will have that power. So that thing not only will be eternal, it will also be everlasting with no end. And that thing will be one.
live in the moment.
It won't be more than one.
Cat's tail.
Yeah, we've already covered that example about more than one entities being the cause of this universe. So you have one being who is eternal with no beginning, everlasting with no end. If you have such a being, this being will be unique, absolutely unique compared to everything else, because there's nothing like it. There will be nothing like this being. Now look, I just speculated about this universe. This is a translation of our scripture called the Quran. There's a small chapter in the Quran, okay? Very small chapter. It's called chapter The Purity of Faith. Only 2 lines in English. But look what it describes, what we believe about the Creator. It's asking us, say, He is God, the One, God, the Eternal. He begat not, no one, nor was He begotten. None is comparable to Him. This is what Revelation confirms, our speculation. That there is a God who is one, alone, eternal, absolute. He is not born, neither does He give birth, meaning He is not a father of anyone or a child of anyone, totally unique, independent. And because He's like this, one, eternal, independent, there's nothing comparable to Him. That's what we believe about the Creator. So our intellectual speculation, the scripture confirms. We don't have to rely only on our speculations. So when you examine Islam and the Quran, you will find that your intellect and your rationality, if you use it and you examine the Quran, it will resonate with the Quran. That your heart and your mind will accept it. Yeah, makes sense. It makes sense here. It makes sense here in my heart and in my mind. This is exactly what I would expect it to be. So when the Quran describes God, it describes God in a way that you will realize it knows you more than you know yourself. I mean, who can know you better than yourself? Your parents knew at one point your behaviors, but your current behavior, your current thinking, no one knows. Unless you tell your best friends, no one will know. But when the Quran describes your inner secrets, inner thoughts, you will suddenly wake up. How is that possible? So we invite you, like you're reading and studying every other book that you want to study, when you examine the Quran, study with this thing in mind. If I expect this book to be from the one and only Creator, what do I expect? I expect perfect descriptions of this one and only Creator. I expect this Creator telling me about who I am, where I come from, where am I going, what's going to happen to me if I die, is there life after death or not? How do I live my life in this life? Is there a particular way I have to live my life, or I'm free to do anything I do? So if you concentrate with this thing in mind, you will see that the Quran, even though you're reading a translation, you will still get this message that the Quran describes to you that your heart and your mind will accept. So if the Quran said, you see, there are people who have taken their own desires as their own God. You reflect around the world and you will see how this is the case. They want to follow their own desires and they make their desire their guide, their living principle in this life. I live what makes me happy. I live according to the way I think will make me joyous and comfortable in this life. They've made their own desires. Even though they knew, as the Quran said, Quran asked them,
So are you agnostic then?
were they created from nothingness? Did they create themselves? Did they create the heavens and the earth? And the Quran rhetorically asked, nay, they have no firm belief. So if an atheist, a self-declared atheist, who says there is no creator, knows that nothingness created them, they did not create their own selves, they did not create the heaven and the earth, the stars and the nebula and the galaxy, they know something else did. Then why is it that they're reluctant to accept? Because they've made their own desires and their own God. Because they don't want to accept and they don't want to, recognize there's something greater than them, something higher than them that exists. This is one of the things that was one of the first things in the history of human beings was realized. when the first human being was created, you had another being called the jinns in a spiritual world, right?